What's up, y'all? It's Dr. Paul with a comic book crack, press, and resubmit video for Liberty Hill Comics, where I share my passion and over 40 years experience comic book collecting, investing, and conservation with you. Today we are continuing our first comic book CPR project for the channel. Our CPR candidate is a nice Marvel Silver Age key, Tales to Astonish number 44, in PGX 6.5 with off-white to white pages. It's the first appearance of the Winsome Wasp by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and is early in the Marvel Age with a publication date of May 1963, which is before the introduction of Doctor Strange, the X-Men, the Avengers, and Daredevil. The Wasp was, of course, a founding member of the Avengers, and was featured monthly for 2 years in Tales to Astonish, first partnering with Ant-Man and then with Giant Man. She would eventually lead the Avengers as the first chairwoman of the team. This comic book has a lot going for it. First appearance of an important Marvel character that has been featured prominently in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, her first cover appearance coinciding with her first appearance, and the definitive creative team of Stan the Man Lee and Jack King Kirby. In episode 1, we explained the concept of comic book crack, press, and resubmit, the financial incentives, what a good CPR candidate looks like, what the risks are, and provided financial specifics for my copy of Tales to Astonish number 44, including what we thought our possible best case, base case, and worst case scenarios are. Then we cracked the slab and gave the book a once-over, looking for any major flaws that PGX may have missed, including a page count. The interior was beautiful and the page count checked out, but I noted the front cover gloss appeared a little suspect and made a note to investigate that further during dry cleaning. I created a playlist for this video series. If you missed episode 1 and want to check it out before watching this episode, just click on the link in the upper right corner. Today we're going to get started dry cleaning this comic book, so I'm just going to make sure I have a clean workspace. Obviously my hands are clean and dry. We've got a pretty nice looking book. It does have some color breaking creases, it's got some wear on the spine. You know, this might be more like a 6 than a 6.5 in my estimation, but I think somewhere between a 5.5 and a 6.5 is probably the correct grade for this. So PGX might have been a little generous with it. We're going to start with a cotton round, and I'm just going to wipe down the cover. I'm going to start gently. The cotton round will allow you to feel imperfections and adhesions, contaminants on the cover. Your fingers can actually feel a 10 micron bump on an average surface. Your fingertips can actually feel a 1 micron bump on a perfectly smooth surface. I feel something, a foreign body on the surface here. So I have my little tool. Some people use a dental pick. This is actually a tiny chisel, and I probably should add something to the description. Find something from Amazon that would be similar to this. This tool I actually got at Radio Shack probably 30 years ago. It's for electronics. I'll have to find something for those of you that want to know exactly what I'm using. Find something very similar. But it's actually a very tiny chisel and allows you to catch the edge of a small foreign body and pop it up off the comic book. So that's what I'm doing here. There's just some tiny, small, black specks or flecks on the surface. And again, I'm not entirely, they're too small for me to identify. But this little chisel is getting them off. And then I can feel that the surface of the book is smooth. So we can move on. I'm going to buff that area with the cotton round, and again, the cotton round, you'll feel the drag from even tiny imperfections if you are paying attention. And then if I feel there might be some drag, I'll go to my hand and use my fingertips, which are more sensitive yet even than the cotton round. So I check my cotton round often. It's something you see me do either with the cotton round or with an eraser. Check it off and make sure you're not lifting ink, and just see how much progress you're making. Because we had those small accretions on the surface, I'm also going to check with my fingers from time to time, and then go back to the cotton round. Here's a freeze frame on the cotton round to show you just how clean it is, which is a little odd, but this is also a pretty clean front cover, so not sure what to make of that. This is my Pentel Click Eraser. This is my preferred sort of go-to main dry cleaning tool. This is a pretty clean cover, but there are a few areas in some of the whites that are just a little discolored. So I'm going to hit them with this Click Eraser. As a reminder, I have a ring light with a 10x magnifying glass. That's how I'm viewing this book. Recommend that highly for any dry cleaning. CGC inspects your book with really good lighting and with magnification. So you should prepare your book for CGC with the same conditions. We've got a great view of one of the pressable defects on this book, this crease that runs top to bottom on the book right here. Obviously that's something that's very addressable with our press. One of the reasons why we think when we're done the book should present better. Now whether or not we get an actual grade bump, maybe PGX overgraded it a little bit, we'll see about that. But certainly the book can be improved, which we saw through the slab and is evident here. So I'm not really getting much out of these white areas in the way of my eraser crumbs are not coming off dark, which is not necessarily a red flag regarding the potential concern that this cover's been reglossed, but it is a little suspect. Usually expect the eraser crumbs to come off with a little bit of coloration. So I think there's no more progress to be made here on this side of the cover with the Pentel Click Eraser. I'm going to go ahead and use this kneadable eraser and just drag it along some of the areas that have some color to them and show just the slightest hint of soiling. I'm going to check the kneadable eraser often, as you see me do before. We want to make sure we're not lifting any ink. And again, it's a little bit odd that I'm not lifting anything on yellow. If you drag this kneadable eraser, you would ordinarily see just the faintest yellow hue on the kneadable eraser, even if you didn't drag enough to make any visible difference on the area where you are cleaning. So these are more clues that make me concerned that maybe we're not able to clean the cover because it has been reglossed. That's why it looks so glossy, and any dirt that is on that cover is actually trapped underneath a layer of new gloss and therefore can't be removed with our dry cleaning methods. Regardless, I don't think we can make much more progress on the front cover, so we're going to move on to the back. I'm going to start again with a cotton round. And the back may give us some clues. If, for example, we see similar light soiling in white areas and on the back they're actually cleanable, that would be a clue for me that perhaps just the front cover was reglossed and the back cover wasn't. So we're going to continue to check the cotton round. Here's a freeze frame. Looks still pretty clean, so I think my cotton round check on the front cover is not definitive. We're going to get cleaning here with the Pentel Click Eraser. Again, my go-to dry clean tool. See, in contrast to the front here, the eraser crumbs are actually dark. See how they're coming off? They look almost black even though they're not removing much here. But they're doing a little bit of cleaning here. So there's dry cleaning to be done on this back cover. Again, if you've watched the channel for a while, you know that I've said most of your dry cleaning you do on back covers anyway, because we have all this white space typically and these wide gutters, and this is where you're always going to spend, or most of the time you're going to spend, the bulk of your effort dry cleaning is going to be on back covers. So get used to these ads, because you're going to see these same ads over and over and over again. You're going to spend a lot of time looking at these images and looking at these gutters and these little gaps in the text that we see over and over again if we dry clean any number of books, if you spend any time at all in this hobby. So I'm pleased with this. This is a relatively clean back cover, but we are removing a little bit of soiling here. So we're going to spend some time. You saw me start with the cotton round. That's the sort of preferred tool to get started. Drag it across the cover. See if you feel any foreign objects, any areas. You can even feel areas where the gloss is disrupted sometimes. You really have a lot of tactile feedback if you're paying attention. Once you do a good thorough cotton round, then you'll switch to your main dry clean tool. Again, for me, it's the Pentel Click Eraser. I remove these eraser crumbs often because it helps me to see where I've been, what I've missed, where I might want to spend some extra time. But some people like to leave them on there, and as you move the book around, they continue to do additional cleaning for you. So I think that's personal preference. On this book, I'm not following a strict pattern like I sometimes do, where I'll start in one corner and sort of go, usually for me, counterclockwise around the outer gutters. I'm jumping from corner to corner a little bit more here. Again, a personal preference issue. It can be effective to start one place and sort of use a pattern, make sure you don't miss areas. But as you'll see, I essentially sort of iterate over the whole book several times anyway, and I'm constantly scanning the surface back and forth. So I think my method is effective for making sure I still get everything covered, because I triple, quadruple, pentuple check it anyway, just as a natural course of what I do. So with the Pentel Click Eraser, again, I'm getting into the areas that are large enough to accommodate this eraser, and as I go, I'm scanning it for areas that might need one of my smaller erasers. And there's a natural way, just like artists like to sort of draw straight lines in one direction, usually pulling and using their wrist. There's a natural way to do the erasing too. So here, where you have a text gutter that is horizontal, normally I'll just twist the book so that it is vertical. so that it works a little bit better with the natural turn of the wrist for the dry cleaning. One thing we've mentioned before on the channel, right, but ergonomics matter. When you do this, I'll probably dry clean this book for at least a half hour. Good lighting, good posture, feet flat on the ground, remembering to breathe, and even things as simple as whether you're primarily using your wrist or your arm to do these movements matter. Here I lost the tip of the eraser. That happens. I tend to extend the eraser fairly far. It helps to make sure that I can't exert much force on the book because the eraser is kind of floppy, so if it's extended a 1/4 inch, you can't really damage a book. But that does create kind of a stress riser right where the Pentel click holder holds the eraser, and it will occasionally break off on me right there, which is fine. You saw that I used the scalpel and I just put in this case, I put a 45-degree angle on there because I happen to be working in this area where I want to be able to get in a little bit tighter anyway. So erasers are inexpensive and not a big deal. In fact, again, I've sort of turned it into an advantage of being able to get into some of these tighter spaces. So now I'm going to concentrate on some of the tighter spaces and get into some of them since I have this angle on my eraser. Kenny Sanderson does essentially all of his work with a 45-degree angle like this, so he will continuously, as soon as he's rubbed it down a little bit, he will cut another sliver off so that he's essentially continuously working with a sharp, I think approximately 45-degree angle. He also uses the eraser extended pretty far. Again, it's sort of a safety measure. You really can't exert much pressure because you have that eraser extended and it's just floppy in the middle. So by not being able to extend too much pressure, you protect the book from maybe an overzealous moment. So again, this is pretty tedious. Now I'm kind of scanning areas visually and just hitting them lightly here and there. Now I'm looking in the areas that aren't just the big white gutters, but some of the tighter areas. There you saw me erase right over top of the print. And as you've heard me say before, with this Pentel Click Eraser, you can do that in Silver Age books as long as you're very gentle. Anything more than a really gentle rub across the text will erase the text that you want to preserve. So now that I feel like I've got the bulk of what I can with my Pentel Click Eraser, I'm going to shift over to the kneadable eraser. Those of you that have been with the channel for a while know that we've done several videos where we reviewed all of these tools, and I do have links in the video description to all of these tools, affiliate links for Amazon. If you want to purchase any of them, I appreciate you using them. This kneadable eraser, in this instance, I feel there's something to be gained by essentially sort of gently dragging it over the entire back of the book. When you do that, you do pick up enough material that you occasionally do need to knead the eraser to get so that you're not just rubbing dirt around the surface. Another great reason to do this is that as you're covering the entire surface, you'll see small spots that you want to come back and hit with your eraser, or even tiny adhesions that you want to remove with the little chisel. And usually when I remove something with the little chisel, there's often a just tiny bit of debris left on the paper, so I'll almost always hit it with an eraser immediately afterward. And now I'm going to knead my eraser to get the the trash off the surface of it and pick right back up where I was. And I'm going to essentially do this process to this entire back cover. I'm going to drag the kneadable eraser over every section of it with a fine eye toward, here I have my mono 0 eraser. This is a 2.3 millimeter, essentially micro eraser, with an eye toward anything that needs a spot erase. And I'll just put the kneadable eraser down, as you just saw me, pick up the tool that I think best suited, and hit that area with a spot erase, and then return back to the kneadable eraser. And this is the process. Again, pretty tedious, but this is how I think you best prepare, especially a Silver Age book, for submission to CGC, or any grading company for that matter. You really need to invest a fair amount of time in it. So even though this is a pretty clean back cover, there's a lot to be gained by this sort of tedious work, just in terms of cleaning and freshening and brightening up the page. So with these text blocks being a third each of the page, and with me wanting to stay away from the colored image, which is normally at the top but at the moment is at the bottom of our view, it's pretty natural to sort of break your kneadable eraser work up into thirds and do that one tall column and then do each of the two smaller columns. Again, I'll come back in with specific spot tools as I see things that I think could be improved while I'm working with the kneadable eraser. And when you're doing the whole surface of the book, knead the eraser frequently so that you don't pick up trash and then just rub that trash all around the rest of the book. Also check the surface of your kneadable eraser regularly. Make sure you're not picking up an inordinate amount of ink. Lifting a tiny amount of ink, and I'm talking really it's microns, is not too bad of a thing to do. In fact, it tends to brighten up the look because the very, very top layer of ink is, or can be, oxidized. And when you lift just that barest amount, you actually reveal brighter inks underneath. This is similar to if you have a car that has faded paint, you can polish it and make it pop again and make it brighter and cleaner and shinier. You're actually removing the top couple of microns of the paint when you do that. So you can't do it forever, but these books here are 60 years old. We can take a couple microns off, especially prior to slabbing. So I'm satisfied now with the dry cleaning. I'm going to just go back over the entire book with Cotton Round. This serves several purposes. I'm doing another last check on it. I'm feeling the surface of the book. I'm potentially buffing out disruptions in the gloss. And I'm also removing any eraser crumbs that may be on the book, because if the book is going to press next, you definitely don't want any eraser crumbs on the surface of the book when you go to press it. I think we've done all we can in terms of dry cleaning this comic book. Overall, I think it looks pretty sharp and it's ready for a press. Regarding whether or not this book has been reglossed, after spending some time dry cleaning it, I'm leaning toward the front cover has been reglossed. The two main reasons I think it has been reglossed are, one, the back has a satin gloss and the front is clearly higher gloss. And not only does it not match the back, but it looks glossier than, in my experience, I tend to see Silver Age comics of this era from Marvel, even ones in much higher grade than this one. And two,
We were unable to dry clean anything on the front, but we were able to dry clean the back a little, even though both the front and the back were already pretty clean. But because the front cover was already pretty clean, I don't think that is necessarily definitive. Reasons I think it may not have been reglossed is the front cover paper is still pretty supple. It doesn't feel stiffer to me than, say, the back cover does, or any other comic book cover from this era. If the front cover has been reglossed, it also doesn't appear to have a yellow color shift that I've been told is a telltale sign for reglossed paper. So right now, I'm putting it as I believe it's been reglossed, but I'm not certain. I'm placing it at approximately 80%, likely that it has been reglossed. Perhaps the press next episode will reveal more clues and we can be more definitive. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video on the comic book crack, press, and resubmit of this little Silver Age gem. Now that we've seen a bit more of the book and heard my rationale, do you think the front cover has been reglossed? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Until next time, take care of one another.